Imagine a place so vast that, if laid over the United States, it would cover half the map, stretching from San Diego to St. Louis. A territory as large as all of Western Europe, from Portugal to Poland. Now imagine that despite its immense size, this place is nearly empty. This place exists, and it's called Kazakhstan, the 9th largest country in the world. But why does such a gigantic country have fewer people than Florida, which is 16 times smaller? With around 20 million inhabitants, Kazakhstan is an extreme example of the contrast between size and population. To put it into perspective, while India, which is similarly sized, has over 1.4 billion people, Kazakhstan is practically an ocean of open land, steppes, and deserts. This staggering emptiness raises a series of questions. What makes this country so sparsely populated? And what does that reveal about the challenges and peculiarities of living there? Let's first understand Kazakhstan's role as a strategic partner for the largest economy in Asia, China, particularly in the energy sector. As one of the largest producers of oil and natural gas in Central Asia, Kazakhstan provides vital resources to sustain China's economic growth, which heavily depends on external sources to meet its ever-increasing energy demands. Moreover, the geographic proximity between the two countries simplifies the construction of pipelines, offering safer and more cost-effective alternatives to maritime transport, which often faces geopolitical tensions in the Strait of Malacca and the South China Sea. The energy partnership between these nations is strongly supported by the Belt and Road Initiative, China's massive infrastructure project. This initiative has funded the construction of pipelines, refineries, and dry ports within Kazakhstan, further integrating Kazakhstan's economy with China's. This ensures a stable energy supply for China while helping Kazakhstan modernize its infrastructure and diversify its economy. However, this growing reliance on China also raises concerns about Kazakhstan's economic sovereignty. For China, Kazakhstan isn't just a reliable energy supplier. It's also a strategic partner in diversifying import routes. By reducing its dependence on Middle Eastern suppliers and maritime routes controlled by Western powers, China strengthens its energy security. With abundant resources and a central location, Kazakhstan is a key piece in this geopolitical chessboard. However, this asymmetric relationship benefits China more, as it uses its economic leverage to secure favorable terms in trade and investment agreements. Despite the strategic weight of this partnership, there are limitations. China's reliance on Kazakhstan also exposes Beijing to potential regional instabilities, such as ethnic and political tensions that could disrupt energy production and transportation. Furthermore, Kazakhstan has been working to diversify its economic partnerships by strengthening ties with other markets, including the European Union and Russia, to avoid becoming overly dependent on China. This somewhat limits the control Beijing can exert over Kazakhstan's resources. But despite Kazakhstan's abundant natural resources, its population density reveals intriguing proportions. With only 7 people per square kilometer, the country ranks among the least populated in the world, a stark emptiness even in the bustling region of Central Eurasia. Surrounded by densely populated neighbors like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan serves almost as an immense bridge of empty land, linking major powers like China and Russia. It's a landscape dominated by vast steppes and deserts, creating huge gaps between the few urban centers dotting its territory. This pattern has significant practical implications. Maintaining sovereignty over such a vast and sparsely populated territory is no small feat, especially with borders cutting across remote and isolated areas. At the same time, the lack of a larger population makes it harder to establish major urban hubs, limiting the infrastructure development needed to boost the economy and strengthen the country's role in regional dynamics. Yet, this emptiness also offers opportunities. It acts as a strategic buffer separating Kazakhstan from its more influential neighbors. But why does this country, with such a strategic location, remain so empty? To answer this, we need to delve into its extreme climate and environment. Kazakhstan's harsh conditions start to make sense when compared to its nearest neighbors. Take Uzbekistan, for example. While its territory is only 1/6 the size of Kazakhstan's, its population is nearly double. This stark contrast highlights factors that help explain Kazakhstan's sparsity. Uzbekistan benefits from a more favorable climate and accessible water sources, which facilitate farming and the development of dense settlements. Kazakhstan, on the other hand, faces distinct challenges. Vast expanses of cold deserts, semi-arid terrain, and geographic isolation that complicates both habitation and infrastructure development. These differences don't go unnoticed in geopolitical terms. While Uzbekistan, with its dense population, aims to strengthen regional influence through trade routes and economic integration, Kazakhstan struggles to balance managing its immense territory with building strategic relationships. Interestingly, despite its demographic void, Kazakhstan is often regarded as the political and economic heart of Central Asia. This perception stems partly from its abundant natural resources and strategic location, allowing it to bridge Russia and China, two giants competing for influence in the region. However, this location doesn't offset the difficulty of transforming such a vast country into a demographic powerhouse. Geography explains much of Kazakhstan's defining emptiness. As a vast, landlocked nation, it suffers from extreme climatic conditions that make habitation even more challenging. Winters bring temperatures that plummet far below zero, while summers can be scorching, with heat exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. This temperature range, typical of regions far from the ocean, turns Kazakhstan's climate into a test of endurance. Much of the territory consists of cold deserts and semi-arid areas, landscapes that, while visually striking, hinder farming and the creation of stable settlements. Imagine combining the characteristics of the Great Plains in the United States with the southern steppes of Ukraine, only on a larger scale and with an even harsher climate. These conditions not only affect daily life but also limit Kazakhstan's potential as an agricultural or industrial power. Neighboring countries like Uzbekistan, with their milder climates, can leverage farming and trade, while Kazakhstan must contend with its geography. This doesn't mean the country lacks opportunities, however. It has enough arable land and freshwater to support a much larger population. The challenge lies in the combination of climatic obstacles and limited infrastructure, which makes it hard to attract people to areas outside the few existing urban centers. The climate, then, is both an obstacle to settlement and a key to understanding why Kazakhstan remains so sparsely populated. Despite these challenges, Kazakhstan possesses one of the most valuable resources in any geopolitical analysis: land. About 11% of its territory is considered arable, which, for a country of its size, represents an agricultural area larger than many entire nations. Additionally, it boasts significant freshwater reserves, mainly found in lakes and rivers that traverse its vast plains. This agricultural potential, however, does not translate into population density. Even with land capable of supporting considerable food production, Kazakhstan's population remains small. One reason for this is that most of these fertile areas are located in remote, disconnected regions, making it challenging to establish efficient production and distribution chains. Kazakhstan's true strength lies in its reserves of natural resources. The country is a giant in oil, natural gas, and rare minerals, all of which are crucial to the global economy and the ongoing energy transition. Paradoxically, this wealth contributes to the demographic emptiness. A resource extraction-based economy does not rely on large populations, as exploitation is highly mechanized and confined to specific sites. These resources place Kazakhstan in a unique position. It is a strategic partner for countries seeking to diversify their energy sources, particularly China and the European Union. However, this reliance on raw materials limits economic diversification, a challenge that could be mitigated with a larger and more evenly distributed population. Yet, historical legacies and economic challenges have shaped this dynamic into something difficult to change. During the Soviet era, the country was shaped to serve Moscow's priorities, with little consideration for local needs. For example, Kazakhstan's vast steppes were used as nuclear testing grounds, turning parts of its territory into contaminated and uninhabitable zones. The Semipalatinsk region, where over 450 nuclear tests were conducted, still bears environmental and social scars from that period. Additionally, Kazakhstan was the target of grand Soviet engineering projects, such as the Virgin Lands Campaign, which attempted to transform parts of the steppes into farmland. While grain production increased, the effort caused severe environmental damage, such as soil erosion, and failed to create stable population centers. This short-term approach, focused on maximizing resource extraction, helped establish an economic model that the country still carries: near total dependence on raw materials. When Kazakhstan gained independence in 1991, it inherited this unbalanced infrastructure. Its economy remains centered on oil, gas, and mineral extraction, reducing the need for large populations to sustain its productive activities, as mentioned earlier. While lucrative, this model also limits the development of more diversified sectors like industry and trade. This history helps explain why Kazakhstan, despite its strategic location and vast resources, continues to struggle to attract and retain people. The challenge for the future will be to break this pattern and transform the country into a hub that goes beyond commodity exports. While the prospects are promising, they hinge on massive investments in infrastructure and innovation. With its population having recently grown to 20 million, Kazakhstan is beginning to show signs that it might be ready for such a transformation. However, the burdens of fragile infrastructure and an immense territory remain significant obstacles. Turning a vast and empty land into a more vibrant economic and demographic space is a challenge that extends beyond sheer numbers. For instance, the country's current infrastructure is far from meeting the needs of a nation aiming to compete globally. Internal transportation is limited, with many remote areas poorly connected to urban centers. Without a robust network, the country's agricultural and industrial potential remains underutilized. Additionally, developing larger urban centers like Astana and Almaty will require significant investments to attract new residents and businesses. But it's not just about infrastructure. The hostile climate and extreme conditions of the territory will continue to be natural barriers to settlement. Another challenge lies in the country's social and demographic structure. A significant portion of the population still resides in rural areas, reflecting difficulties in efficient urbanization and in creating hubs that provide stable jobs and quality services. Furthermore, the migration of young people to other countries in search of better opportunities slows internal growth and hinders the renewal of local communities. Even so, Kazakhstan holds important cards to play on the geopolitical chessboard. Its vast reserves of oil, natural gas, and rare minerals position it as a strategic partner for countries in need of energy and resources. Additionally, its location as a connection point between Europe and Asia, within China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, offers unique opportunities for economic integration. Kazakhstan's future largely depends on its ability to balance the exploitation of these resources with the development of more diversified sectors. Investing in technology, renewable energy, and education are essential steps to building an economy that doesn't rely solely on commodity exports. Another relevant aspect is Kazakhstan's rich cultural and historical heritage, often overshadowed by its role as a resource supplier. The country boasts a unique identity shaped by centuries of influence from the Silk Road and the nomadic lifestyle across its vast steppes. Despite its low population density, Kazakhstan preserves traditions that include festivals, music, and architecture, which are increasingly gaining global recognition. Moreover, the emptiness that defines Kazakhstan's territory has enabled the creation of innovative projects focused on environmental preservation. The country has invested in initiatives like the restoration of the Aral Sea and the development of nature reserves, drawing international attention. These efforts demonstrate that, even with a small population, Kazakhstan has the potential to become a model of sustainability and smart resource management. Meanwhile, the emptiness remains part of what defines Kazakhstan, a symbol of both its immense possibilities and the challenges that still lie ahead. Which brings us to an important question. Can Kazakhstan turn its vastness into a driver of growth and influence in the region? You'll only find out by subscribing to the channel right now. That way, you'll be able to follow the content we post here on GFlow every week. For now, check out the next video right here on the screen. See you there. Take care.